It's Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. In this evening's show, we review two games of complete contrast. Starting with a dismal defeat at Bristol City on Saturday, which then got completely flipped on its head with the incredible result against QPR at Bloomfield Road last night. And I'm John Aspinall. This is the Seaside's podcast, match reaction show. Blackpool 6. Yes, 6. QPR 1.
Small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Oh, God. What a game. What a game. I'm sure
Loving the intro.
Sure our listeners, both audio and video, will enjoy the intro theme tune there, as Tim was referencing. We'll probably get a YouTube copyright strike, but so what? And Tim, when games like that happen, you've got to milk it for all you can.
Yeah, it's amazing what 72 hours does, isn't it? We go from the doom and despair and the gnashing of teeth that we saw on Saturday to relative elation and hopefully a more positive mindset for what's going to be a very, very important period for the club, the team, the manager, and most certainly us.
Mitch, I think that if... I keep calling you Mitch. Matt. I'll interchange your name, if that's all right with you. Yeah,
Match.
But yeah, Match. I think if we had done a pod directly after the Bristol City game, it would have been slit your wrists time. So it's probably a good job no one could be arsed.
Well, I was on one of the Blackpool related media outlets. I was a little bit worse for wear after the Bristol game, so it's probably a good job we didn't do a pod straight after the Bristol game. But some of us never lost faith.
You telling everybody on AVFTT to fuck off, weren't you?
I did.
It was tongue in cheek, mostly.
Why? What happened?
Oh, in the right rant.
I just felt there were more white flags than Vichy France on there. So, we should collaborate in relegation. We should, and 6-1, I was right.
It'd been on the Raggy Aid, I think, is the is the terminology.
Yeah. And I'd probably had a few too many double Smirnoffs in my Raggy Aid, to be honest. I apologise to any readers of that forum who were offended.
There's been a lot of rants kicking around on social media at the moment.
There certainly has, hasn't there?
I'd like to think it was mainly my positivity that inspired the boys.
Nick, where did that come from yesterday? I was gobsmacked.
I've absolutely no idea. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I went through the turnstile and entered a parallel universe where Blackpool were playing fantastic, fluid, free-flowing, attacking football with defenders scoring at will. I had to wake up this morning and double-check it hadn't been a dream. It was... Yeah, absolutely amazing, and such a difference from Saturday. We were all massively deflated after that. I watched it with Tim in Polton, drowning our sorrows as the game went on, and we barely created a chance in that game against Bristol City. And the one we did, obviously, Jerry fluffed his lines, unfortunately. So wasn't massively confident with last night. Although I was with Mitch when we in the Phoenix Club when we saw the team news, and we pepped up a bit because at least it looked on paper a bit more attacking. Couple of ball playing midfielders in there, and that's what a lot of people have been asking for, isn't it? Play your better attacking players and
play your best players in the right positions.
Yeah,
it's been one of Raggy's favourite quotes. But wasn't it when you all woke up this morning, did you have a bit of a spring in your step? And didn't the world seem like a better place?
Yeah,
It's
just,
weird
I mean,
how it affects you like
even
that,
when
isn't
we
it?
beat Stoke, you look at it and think we were quite lucky, weren't we? And hung on in there and had about 20% possession. But we made. I mean, but it was I was watching the highlights just before, and the interesting commentator said that was the same QPR team that beat Watford on Saturday. So, and we didn't just make them look ordinary, as we're going on to discuss. We made them look abject, to be honest. And it was, somebody said in the chat there, it was a bit Holloway-esque, and but most certainly the way that we attacked the game and the positive approach we had from the outset, which is like the yin and yang, it's completely opposite spectrum to what we've been watching in recent weeks and months, was beyond refreshing. It was almost like a disbelief that was permeated through the crowd.
Just before we get any deeper, let's just rewind a bit. And I did say in the intro, we're going to have a quick look at the Bristol City game. The main talking point of that, again, I think, was the starting lineup, which was Maxwell, Gabriel, Nelson, Thornley, Thompson, Conley, Carey, Bowler, Garbutt, Medine, and Yates. And again, when I saw that, I was like, we and you were going to go, Tim, weren't we? So glad we didn't.
Yeah. And probably what was really noticeable, and again, bear in mind, and again, without getting ahead of ourselves, that the players that we're going to be speaking about a lot tonight was no Fiorini, and I think we were told he and Pavida were omitted for a disciplinary issue, which seemed to relate to them exiting the ground when they weren't picked to play against Burnley. But they must. I can imagine why there's the frustration there, and I can imagine that Andy Lyons must have been thinking the same, because they've sat on the bench and hardly got a kick in week after week after week when we're not exactly playing great. And I've never understood why Andy Lyons was dropped. I mean, he can play left back, right back, left mid, and I suspect right mid quite well as well. And every game he'd played, he'd look. He's had a couple of the arguments where he stood off when goals were scored, which I felt was a bit harsh. But as an attacking threat from the wings, he is the real deal. And to see him not play, this isn't with the benefit of hindsight. I thought, why the hell are we not playing him on the left hand side? And obviously, it's I think Pavida, we're not going to see much of him, are we? Because he didn't even get on again last night. But he seems to be a disruptive influence, however good he might be in fits and starts. But and listen. This isn't revisionism with us talking about these players, because they had a good game last night. How many times have we picked Andy Lyons in that team and Fiorini in that team to find them benched or not even in the squad?
Yeah,
and Rodgers.
Yeah. Mitch, obviously a very devastating moment for yourself.
To be honest, John.
To be honest, what I'm referring to.
I came on here expecting to discuss the QPR game. I'm not sure I'm in an emotional place really to cover the Bristol City game because of the tragic occurrences on about 26 seconds. It summed up our season, doesn't it? Because I think you look at that game, it was rank bad, it was awful. But it sums up our season that I would guess that McCarthy had based everything around playing off Medine, being direct, hitting them at the heart of their defence. We very rarely got at them. The few times we did, they didn't actually look very good at the heart of central defence. And so, you never know, do you? With a big lad in there and lots of long direct balls, that might have been a completely different game. But that plan obviously went out the window. I suspect we won't see Medine again playing for us, which obviously people have mixed opinions on. But I don't think we ever really recovered from him going off. Not that we can't play without him, because palpably we can from last night, but that I don't think we were set up at all to play without him, and I don't think we really recovered from that, and I don't think we really adapted to that very well at all. And yeah, it was a shame, because he's, like him or loathe him, and quite clearly I like him. I think he's got a lot to offer as an alternative. He's got a lot to offer as a focal point, and I think he's a good footballer. And I think, despite him making a few daft choices in some games, he's also put a massive shift in for us, and got kicked about and knocked about for us for the best part of 3 years. And I think it's sad that he'll go out like that. And ultimately, I hope he's all right to continue his career somewhere.
Nick, it could have been terrible as it is for Big Gaz to, as Mitch just said there, probably end his career with Blackpool. But based on last night with Morgan Rogers going up there to join Jerry up top, it could be a blessing in disguise. Because A, it's forced Mixon to play a different formation or attacking formation. And B, Morgan Rogers has proved himself more than capable to play up there. I'd argue with a bit more to add than Medine does in that position. Different aspects, rather.
Like you say, I think we've probably ended up there by not necessarily by Mick McCarthy's choice, but it's good that we have, because lots of fans have been calling for it for a number of games. And it's such a difference, isn't it? And on Saturday, like Mitch says, we're set up for Medine to play. I'd just done a bet builder on my online account, which included a Gary Medine shot on target. Press the button. He said, "Your bet is on." And the guy went, "And there's a problem with Gary Medine." And I was just like, it could have been worse, though, because Jim messaged me. I don't know why he woke up on Saturday morning thinking this was a good idea, but he doesn't have an online account. And he says, "Can I send you a tenner?" I said, "Yeah, of course you can." He said, "Put it on Luke Garber anytime scorer." I was like, "Hey, have you been drinking?" So, yeah, both of us were, I said, "You might as well set fire to that tenner, Jim." But yeah, and as soon as he went off, it's like, well, what's plan B? And again, it was another game where the opposition weren't great, but they didn't need to be. They didn't really need to get out of second gear to beat us. Once Jerry missed his chance, you're just thinking, is that it? Because we'd been creating so few chances in games that when you miss that one, you're wondering, are we going to get another? Then when we go 1-0 down, and granted it was a screamer, but we're just not going to create. We're not going to score 2 goals, are we? So it's game over, and you're thinking it's another game with a missed opportunity where we could have played differently with a different formation, different players, and who knows, it could have been a different result. Thankfully, by Tuesday, by hook or by crook, we've ended up with a lot more attacking lineup. I believe there was a players' meeting that took place that was just the players. I don't think McCarthy was involved in it, and they've had a few home truths and got a bit off the chest. And who knows whether they've said something to McCarthy about who they should play or how they should play. But however it's happened, we've ended up with a much better formation for last night, and hope. I mean, I'm not under any illusions that it's going to be like that for the rest of the season. Starting on Saturday, very, very different game probably against tough opposition. But if we're playing that sort of formation and lineup, you can say we've given it our best shot, rather than operation 0-0, try and stay in the game and create one chance in 90 minutes, which inevitably wasn't working for us.
Tim, a common theme for our last 3 games last night aside is obviously what looks like very little attacking intent from the team, setting up to get a 0-0, nick a 1-0. And this game was the absolute pits, wasn't it? It was... Everyone was on such a downer after watching this game, and I think pretty much everyone I know, was Reggie aside, was resigned to relegation after watching this game.
Yeah, it didn't look good, did it? I mean, bar Jerry's ill-aimed shot, which obviously I think 95 times out of 100 he would bury. We offered very little, and let's get it right. This was against a team who I think had 8 academic players in the squad. To be fair, as some who appear to be very good. But the reality was that we weren't playing anything like a full strength Bristol City side, and it's a team who have little to play for. And I generally felt we would go there and we would do something. And I came away at the end really feeling it was a huge missed opportunity, compounded as it happened by QPR winning as well against Watford, which obviously seemed to put one team pretty much beyond us. I think they were 10 points clear of us after Saturday, and I'd always felt that they were one of the teams most likely to get sucked in. So yeah, it was just a huge disappointment. It was a very insipid performance, to say the least, all over the pitch, and what Nick's alluded to, this frank exchange of views that appears to have taken place with McCarthy and Terry Connor taking a back seat seems to have borne some fruit, and maybe as well they've watched a few team selections we've made and realised who should be in the team and who shouldn't be in the team, because most certainly, 2 or 3 players who haven't been getting games, who clearly are offering more than those who have been, were the stars of Tuesday night. So. And I really think we need to get on to Tuesday night, because talking about Bristol starts to depress me again. It's I can move myself going downhill.
All right, there we go. I'll change the banner.
Can I give probably a nice link, a sort of local radio style link? I watched the Bristol game because I was away, as I said, in my Yorkshire breakaway, and I watched it on my own on a phone in the pub, because it wasn't even on the pub telly there where I thought it was going to be. So I watched it on my phone in the pub, and I was just like that odd man in the corner watching his phone with his earphones in on his own. And after about 70 minutes, whenever they scored the second, I just went, "Fuck's sake, CJ," in front of the whole pub, and then remembered where I was in this random Yorkshire town. You know, when he caught the ball for the throw-in, the throw-in got turned over, and then we went and scored. And the whole pub just like, "What? Who's CJ and what has he done?" Which is probably a nice way to link into the next game, where the story was very different for our glorious winger.
Certainly was. This was the team. Chris Maxwell, Andy Lyons, Nelson, Thornley, Husband, Conley, Patino, Fiorini, Hamilton, Rogers, and Yates. Tim, come to you first on that. What were your thoughts when you saw the team?
Well, it was, I suppose, that the great to see Andy Lyons, great to see Fiorini, and as we know, he and Patino seem to have a bit of telepathy between them. They seem to play quite well together. I think the main thing I was looking at was how we were going to set up. Were we going to play 4 at the back, or we were going to go 3 with 2 wing backs? It wasn't 100% clear, because of course Conley could have been in midfield. So that was one of the things I thought. But I was just generally pleased. It was a reasonably attacking side. I wasn't surprised to see Josh Bowler drop down to the bench, bearing in mind his performance on Saturday. He just seems a shadow of his former self at the moment. And very pleased to see that Morgan Rogers had retained his place. Because I felt that, he gave us some pace and some strength up front as well, which I think is quite important. He's a big lad at the end of the day. I think he's about 6'3", isn't he, or something? So, overall, I was. We all knew this was a game we had to win. I think even those who've on their second pint of Raggy would have struggled to have much optimism if we'd got turned over last night. So I think we knew we had to go for it. And I think to be fair, so did Mick McCarthy. I think he realised, we're running out of games and we need to get a win on the board. And But with QPR winning, all of a sudden this team who's been losing every week, they've picked up some points. You're not quite sure how they're going to turn up either. So yeah, but overall, I looked at it was one of those games where for once I actually felt it was something like the best team we could put out. I was surprised to see Gabriel drop out. I didn't realise he must be injured. I'm assuming if he wasn't even involved, but I didn't realise he was. And great to see Keshi back on the bench as well.
Mm. Yeah. Mitch, come to you next. James Husband coming in was a bit of a surprise for me. He had a bit of a stinker, didn't he, at Bristol City? Fully redeemed himself.
He did, but I mean, he's had enough good games for you don't play at the top of your game every single week, and one bad game doesn't make you a bad player. And I think Mick spoke quite highly of him in the week as well. Talked about him being a voice in that players' meeting and sort of one of those players that gives the kind of leadership that he wants. And yeah, I'm always happy to see Hubby in there. To be honest, when I saw the team, and Nick will testify to this, I'd only just seen the team when I went in the Phoenix. I basically said, I don't really care because it just feels like we're picking random players out of a hat at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any consistency in selection. So I kind of didn't really have an opinion on it because it feels like he's done a different thing in sort of virtually every game. So you can't necessarily work out. It's a bit like when Critchley used to do this, but we'd all go, "What the bloody hell is he doing?" And I've literally said this in the pub to Nick. When Critchley did it, you go, "What the bloody hell is he doing?" And then we'd win. And I said something like, "But with McCarthy, you just feel like you'll go, what the bloody hell is he doing?" And then we'll lose 2-0 again. And how wrong I was. So I kind of saw the team and went, "Oh yeah, it's 11 players anyway," and walked to the ground. It was kind of odd. And for all the fact I've had a few rants about us being positive, in my heart of hearts, I'd sort of, for the first time, I think, well, probably I felt like this before the Birmingham game, but then the Bristol City game knocked it out of me. I kind of just walked up to the ground going, "Oh, well, what will be. And sort of not caring, but not really expecting anything at all, So
I was listening. I got to the ground a bit late. I had to work a bit late and had a late tea. So I was almost in the mindset. It was like, can I be arsed going after listening to all the rain beating down it was actually hail beating down on the roof of the conservatory. And the thought crossed my mind. Eddie didn't want to go. He says, "I'm sick of it. It's boring. They're always losing." And I went, "Well, no, I'm going to force myself to go. It'll be lame sitting there watching on TV." But on the radio on the way down, they had Neil McDonald on, Radio Wanks of Elasticate fame, and he said, "I think Mick McCarthy is just he's more or less said what you've said, Mitch. He's not doing a lucky dip, but he's trying all these different formations and variations in players, and he says it looks like he's trying to come up with a formation and a system that will work based on these players that he's got, and luckily, I think he's finally found it, hasn't he?"
Well, I mean, I don't want to jump in again, but who on earth had CJ Hamilton in that side? I've seen so many fan sides put out there where we need to play this, we need to play that. And I think, for me, I scanned it and went, "Oh, he's picked fucking CJ again," and it's kind of went,
I put in the WhatsApp group, the patrons WhatsApp group, "Shuttlecock will fire us to victory this evening."
Absolutely.
And you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say,
but you also did a throwing up emoji about Charlie Patino being in.
But then I kind of backtracked when someone said he played well with Fiorini. Yeah. So I said, all right, fair enough. Anyway, shut up, Nick.
And he'd have Stuart Moore in goals.
He's still not had his chance. I still want to see him. Let's go on the game then. Blackpool gentlemen have tended to start under Mick McCarthy anyway. The game very brightly for 10, 15 minutes, not done anything, and invariably gone on to get beat, right, not at home or not get the win. But wow, what a start to this game. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I think what we saw is attacking intent from the start. I'm trying to think who put the ball in now. Was it CJ put the ball in? I think it.
Yeah,
CJ ball in for first two, I think.
Yeah. So he puts the ball in. I think one of their defenders sort of like half clears it, and then we have a shot, and then it ricochets out again, and then the ball comes back in, and the refs, to be fair, right on the spot, and spots the handball, and points straight to the spot. Obviously, right down the other end of the ground. To be honest, it's a crap view when you're behind when the ball's at the other end. I'd actually thought the ball had crossed the line and he'd given it until I saw it back away and it go on the penalty spot. So I can't really comment overly on whether it was. I mean, it clearly hits his hand, and he's very, very well placed. So I think on applying the laws of the game, it's a penalty. I think if you're the defending team, you're going to be disappointed with it that it's given. But he couldn't be better placed, to be honest. The ref, he was about 5 yards away from it. So, and it was instantaneous in pointing to the spot. So I don't think he was deliberating in any shape or form. It was good actually to have a ref who actually
on our side
slightly favoured us.
Yeah, he gave us all the 50-50s, didn't he?
How many times have it not been the case though? It's
well,
sort of...
with the penalty, I think it was a pen. Rob Dickie, I think it was. He was leading with his arm, wasn't he? He was kind of.
Yeah. I think that's
led
what
with his
probably
elbow.
decided it, wasn't it?
It was a penalty in this world of sort of Premier League VAR penalties, where if your arm's in an odd position, I think it was a penalty that in the 1980s you'd have probably seen, a lot of people go, well, it's never a penalty because it just, because I think what is a handball has become a lot softer than it used to be. It was right in front of me, and I didn't even know what was going on, so I obviously joined in vociferously with the cries for handball, even though I hadn't seen a thing. Yeah.
How can you not see it from your vantage point?
Well, it was just because it was bouncing around. There was all sorts going on, and you sort of. I think it's one of the beauties of.
He was writing his blog. I think.
It's
not right.
Too busy blogging. The vlogger
It's
and the blogger.
It's one of the beauties of live football is you watch different things, don't you? Sometimes a ball's coming in and you try to anticipate where it's going, or and I was more bothered about whether it was going to drop to somebody. Sort of all I saw was it go up in the air, bounce around about three people, loads of people shouted for a penalty, and I was kind of watching what was happening on the edge of the box, and then and also I thought we're not going to get a penalty. It's almost got to the point where it's like, what's the point shouting for a penalty because we're not going to get one, and then we did.
I had a different vantage point of the game. I went and walked up in the north, and I stood where Joe normally sits in the disabled area. Great vantage point from up there, and it's funny you say that, Mitch, because I was about looking at other things. I had a good vantage point of Nick and Jim. And I was like watching them for their reactions, like when goals were going in. So Jim sat there like barely doing anything, Nick.
Yeah.
Like, with his hands behind his back. I was like, does he not know we've just scored?
I
You were
think-
like, yes, come on.
I think it was disbelief. We were kind of looking around it because like that pen went in, and on the pen, every credit for Jerry. He's missed that sitter on Saturday, and you wouldn't have known that he hasn't scored in nearly 20 games, whatever it is, because he puts it in the top corner, supreme confidence, very well taken penalty, and we were all just kind of looking around each other. I said to the guy behind me, I hope it's not going to be 89 minutes of defending now, because we're so used to not being on the front foot, not playing attacking football, that are we going to try and defend this for an hour, for 90 minutes, because that would have been a hell of a long night. But as it turned out, obviously, that was just the start of things.
Certainly was. Lyons goal 1, next talking point. Tim, you were obviously banging the drum for Andy Lyons, as we all have. And he was almost instrumental in scoring from the first chance of the game, just before the pen. He almost got on the end of the chance, and he's there again on the first goal. Great work on the left-hand side, I think it was, wasn't it? CJ putting the ball in again, but
incredible the way he shrugged off his man and really showed his pace, just to give him that probably half a yard ahead of. I mean that it's been said in the chat, to be fair, the right back got skinned by him all night.
He was a midget, though, to be fair, wasn't he?
Yeah. But you can still be a fast. Even if you're vertically challenged a bit, you can still be fast and tenacious and strong. And to be fair, CJ normally looks quite clumsy, but he looked the real deal last night, all right from the start. And the second goal particularly, I thought he was incredible, and cuts the ball back, and Lyons comes and meets it and side foots it into the far right-hand corner. To be honest, when he scored, again, because it was at the other end, I'm thinking, who the hell scored that? Because I knew it wasn't Jerry.
I thought it was Jerry.
Who scored that? And then you're thinking, what the fuck's Lyons doing up there? Because we've broken as it is anyway, haven't we? So CJ's broken and gone down on the left, cut inside, played it back. What's the right back doing coming in on the left-hand side of the penalty area to get on the end of that? But it just shows Lyons is an all-action player, and he's all over the pitch, and you can see why he scored so many goals in his career already, because he plays like this total football that you used to see Holland play in the 70s, where nobody sticks to the positions. He goes on mazy runs. He darts in here and there, and it's incredible. I mean, I think he's incredibly exciting player to watch, and it's going to be incredibly exciting to see how he develops as a player over the next couple of years, because every time I see him play, last night was one of the most consummate performances I've seen. As a young lad, still got to remember as well, consummate performances from somebody in a right wing back role you're ever going to see, because he wasn't just attacking; he was back defending. His clearances were good. He kept the ball in play, rarely put it out of play unless he really had to. He was tenacious in the tackle. He was finding feet when he got the ball. He's good with his head, fast. Took players on. You also run out of the superlatives, don't you, as to what he's capable of doing. But turning up on the left-hand side of the box when we're breaking wasn't what I was quite expecting from a Blackpool fullback, to be honest.
I read a really good comment. I really apologise to whoever it was, because I can't remember who it was, but I read a really good comment, which was talking of like things you see actually at the games. Was somebody who said every time we scored, Lyons was the first player that was back in his position for the kickoff. And I think that sort of sums up something about him, is he's got this maverick quality to him, but he also takes his fundamental role, his basic fundamental role in the team very, very seriously. And he's got, quite apart from anything he does in any moment when he scores a goal or, puts a cross in, he's got a really canny sense of when to go and when not to go. If you look, and I'm not trying to call out Thompson, but you look at Thompson, who is a player who kind of, he'll go on a hairy run. And a number of times you go, where's Tomo? He's not in the right place. He shouldn't. But Lyons somehow seems to manage to do that, to pop up and become an ancillary striker, and also be able to play right back, that's really quite an unusual ability, and takes a hell of a lot of judgment from a player so young.
You can understand why he scored so many goals at Shamrock after seeing that performance last night.
Yeah, quite.
Incredible.
It's a bit like Sheffield United when they had their sort of underlapping and overlapping centre backs, and teams didn't know how to cope with it for about a season and a half, because it's just not normal. And you can see trying to have to pick up the right back all the time would just blow the mind of, having a midfielder that drifts into the box, sort of a Clarkson-esque midfielder that drifts in the box is a thing. But having a right back that appears somehow cutting in from the left-hand side, how do you defend against that?
Do he reminds, and I kept slipping into calling him last night. He reminded me a little bit of Andy Robertson when he's playing his best football. And so it's been mentioned in the comments as well about Seamus Coleman. You can see these attributes in him, and again, it's just so frustrating that he's been kicking his heels for 5 or 6 games.
Well, Craig's just said that in the comments, Tim. Crime against footy, not playing him every game. If he'd played every game, we'd have had God knows how many more points. as I take a drink. Marcus Mackay, who signed him? Lyons, Appleton, BS Ben, or another. It'd be interesting to know that.
I think
It was
he's
on the
one of the
Critchley, wasn't it?
process ones, isn't he? I think he's one that's been identified. I think possibly the credit for him might go to John Stevenson ultimately.
It'd been knocking about a while, hasn't it? Hadn't it? And we couldn't quite agree a fee, and then we'd gone back again with an increased fee, and then it was just waiting for him to finish his season. But he looks at, it's early days, and you try not to get carried away, but it's hard not to get excited about it, isn't it? His performances, not just defensively, but going forward, it just gives us another dimension.
And right backs are almost never exciting, are they? I always think that right back is the least, Even at least left backs are left footed, and left footed players always seem a bit more classy somehow.
They always have a wand of a left foot, don't they? They always have a wand of a left foot. They've always got that little attribute. Yeah, you're right. It's the most boring position on the pitch.
I mean, we do a disservice to some of our great right backs like Mike Davis and others. Marvin Bryan was fun, and obviously Coleman was good.
Jimmy Armstrong.
Thirdly, scored some crackers, didn't he? But there's also been some.
We've actually got, bearing in mind that it's been our bogey position right back. We've now got quite a few contenders back there, haven't we? Who can play in that position. I mean, Gabriel generally has been playing well since he's come back from injury, and you do wonder whether you should try Lyons on the left as well and try and play them both. But I don't know. It's a nice little conundrum to have, but I can't see how anybody can take a shirt off Lyons after the way he's performed last night.
You can't, can you? So 2-0 up, about 10 minutes gone, and 15 minutes, and this happened. Have it! Calamitous take from the goalkeeper on the edge of the box, drops it. Nelson's there just making himself a nuisance. Ball's fallen, but he still had a lot to do, Mitch, didn't he? Did you see this one that was also right in front of you?
I did see this one, yes.
Hey.
I did see this one, and again, I was just assuming the ref was going to blow up because, the keeper came out, and I mean, Nelson just sort of almost waiting with him, didn't even go in on him, just sort of jumped in with him. And I think had given up on it almost, assuming the keeper had caught it. And he just dropped it at Nelson's feet, who just took it wide a little bit and passed it in. And I couldn't believe it that when they scored or when it went in, I sort of looked at the ref and thought, has he blown up? No, I don't think he has. Looked at the linesman. The linesman hadn't flagged. And then even ridiculously looked at the linesman on the other side, even though he wouldn't have had a judgment. He was in the other half of the pitch. And then kind of got on with celebrating because, again, I just assumed, because it's one of those that everything like that this year, no goal, foul on the keeper, obviously it's you. And it was unbelievable, wasn't it? And they were just so weak at the heart of their defence. I said to the bloke who sits next to me that, like, when we played Blackburn, we put a few balls into the box, and Blackburn just seemed to kind of put the foot on it and calmly pass it out. And it seemed like they weren't scared of us in any way. Whereas QPR, every time we sort of put the ball anywhere near their goal, they just seemed to fall apart in panic. And even if there wasn't a chance in the first place, they'd create one for us. They were so bad.
Shout from Marcus there. Lyons and Gable could play like Hills and Yashin in the day. Yeah.
And they didn't even play together that much, did they? They didn't play together that much, but everybody remembers Hills and Yashin playing together because it was so much fun. But it was probably only about 20 games that they actually ever did that in together.
Those of a certain vintage, obviously. So, Tim, Dreamland 3-0, 15 minutes in. A good block from Hubby, stopped a certain goal, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that was obviously at the end I could see. So I was a bit frustrated. Whilst it was great to be 3-0 up, it was a bit frustrating to sit in the north because you were missing all the action, or at least relatively speaking. But I've got to say, I think the QPR got free, actually, probably one of the few times they did down that left-hand side and played the ball in, and I think Maxwell was committed. Not a criticism, but I think he was. And the ball looked like it was going to not quite trickle. It was a bit faster than that over the line, and Sir James of Husband came in with a nice little block and saved the day. And then if I remember rightly, Maxi was all over it straight. He was straight up and all over it to make sure that we didn't. They didn't get back hold of the ball. So yeah, I mean, obviously it goes 3-1, and all of a sudden you start wondering whether the silence would have descended, wouldn't it? And nerves might have kicked in, and then you start wondering, do we start just trying to protect what we've got, which I think would be completely the wrong thing to do. Because I think that performance, that first 30 minutes that QPR played, was probably the worst I've ever seen a football team play, arguably ever at Bloomfield Road. I mean, I actually felt sorry for the QPR fans that travelled all the way up, and after 30 minutes, you must have been sat there thinking, I might as well go home now. And I think some did leave in the first half, didn't they, and clear off. And I can't say I blame them, because you've got a long drive home. I was chatting to some guys on the way out, and they were staying over. But they said to me, they said, how bad do you think we were in the first half? Is that the worst you've seen all season? I said, yeah, and I think it generally is. I don't think I've seen a team that disorganised and that so far off anything approaching an acceptable standard. And I was gobsmacked when I heard the commentator on the highlights say that it was exactly the same team that beat Watford.
There was an interesting comment on Twitter, Tim, about this. QPR fan who said they were more surprised that they had beaten Watford and played well than they were by the 6-1 defeat last night. And I did the preview for a QPR blog that's really good, and I read it sometimes. And after the game, I just tweeted the guy I'd done talk to, and I just tweeted him, "What the fuck? ? And he replied, "Yeah, that's us. You can see now what Critchley was up against." And he wasn't surprised at all. And I've been reading his blog because he's a really, really good writer. I've been reading his blog just for the sake of reading it. And he is absolutely of the mind that they are of a sort of a festering septic mess of egotistical players who are pretty much unmanageable. And they need to burn the whole squad down and start again because it's that bad. Which was a surprise given how well they'd done earlier in the season, wasn't it? Really, I mean, they looked quite good when we played them at their place. I know we won, but they looked quite good and you're on good form. But I think when you go away 6-1 and you're not actually that surprised or angry at that, it tells a story about how bad it must have been beforehand.
We've never done the league double over QPR as well.
No,
not tonight.
And they haven't got the sort of the excuse or the reasoning that we often have, or the fact that we often have of being, one of the smallest budget teams with, players sometimes perhaps needing to play above their level to get us. I mean, they've got some, they've got some serious money in their players that we haven't, and I think that's, they just sort of. I thought they were. I didn't see the Birmingham 6-1, and I also was lucky enough to miss us losing 5-0 at Peterborough. But I would say that is, by a margin, the worst I've seen any team play, including us, at any point since we've got back in the Championship.
Yep. Yeah, I'd agree.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary how disorganised they were, well, from their perspective anyway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Hubby's made that block, and the dreamland has continued in the first half. The main man, Jordan Thornley's popped up with his first goal for Blackpool, Nick. Great moment for him, and great to see us scoring from a corner for once.
Well, that's it. It all happened last night, didn't it? Set piece delivery. Although I have to say the defending for it was non-existent. He just literally had to stand there and put his head on the ball, and it's in the back of the net. And it's another one where I was looking at the linesman thinking, it's another goal. I can't believe it. It was weird how poor they were, and brilliant for Thornley because, as we covered, I think on the last pod when we were talking about him, he never lets us down. He's brilliant when he plays. It'll be a shame if he goes at the end of the season, because he's forming a real partnership with Avid, I think. And I don't know how far away Marv is, but those two for me, they're undroppable. They're probably your first couple of names on the team sheet, and it would be brilliant. It probably won't happen, but if we could keep them, together for next season, whatever division we may be in, because there is a real partnership forming there, and it was brilliant. To go 4 up in the first half was absolute dream world.
And to answer your question, John, I don't know if this is 100% right, but before the game, I saw somebody say it was over 1,100 days since we won on a Tuesday night, which would be about 3 years.
No, surely not.
Yeah.
Didn't we work it out that it was actually, that was the first start? I'm sure it was in the patrons group, and I'm sure we worked it out that it wasn't a 1,000 whatever, it was actually a mere 868 or something.
Is that all?
Yeah.
A long time.
Is that? If anyone in the comments, let us know, when did we last win a Tuesday night?
I can't remember what game it was, but it was the COVID season. It was a COVID season, and it was one. Possibly it was the game when everybody was outside that sealed us going up, or sealed us in the playoffs. Was it Doncaster? Or was that a Saturday? I can't remember, but it was around that time. It was that long ago.
I was sat with my old pal Phil at the match, and he made a good point. He said Tuesday night games used to be brilliant, didn't they? Under Billy Eyre and Steve McMahon as well. They were great Tuesday night games. Invariably we do quite well, and what's happened to us that it's such a bind to play on Tuesday nights now? It's weird.
That's at home, I take it, because we have one.
Yes, yeah, home.
We have one away, haven't we?
Home. I'm just saying Tuesday night games and the lights, it was always a good occasion, but it's not been over the last 3 years. Maybe it was Mystic Meg's put a curse on us, and with her sad demise, the curse has been broken.
That's what it'll be.
We've got Mystic Mick now.
Chris Martin made Blackpool feel yellow.
Hey.
Oh, you've been practicing that one, haven't you?
Where's that tumbleweed sound effect? We still got it, John. He's trying to find it.
There we go.
Seamless broadcasting.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Look
at
at
the old edited stick out afterwards, won't he?
If you're listening to this on the audio, that'll be seamless. No big gap. Mitch, we seem to reminisce about things you don't see in football anymore, and diving headers are one of those things. So it's from an outsider looking in, it's quite a good thing to see.
Yeah, it was
well taken goal, actually. Jimmy,
it was a very well taken goal at the time. I mean,
I'd actually gone for a drink as well, so I missed it.
Well, I hadn't, and at the time, unbelievably, I went, "Oh no!" Even though we were 4-0 up, and I thought, "Oh no, it's the worst time to concede a goal just before half time," and went into some kind of fit of anxiety, and sort of the reverse of what Tim was saying before. Obviously, it was at the north, so I didn't see it very well, and it was only watching the highlights back that I appreciated quite what a lovely header it was as well. It looked, from where I was, it looked fairly routine, sort of a ball in, and I couldn't even really tell if they'd been tapped home or nodded home, but it was a cracker. It was almost Keith Houchin-esque, wasn't it? And yeah, I do love a diving header. So on a 6-1 victory, I think we can appreciate the away goal. And I suppose I also felt a bit sorry for the QPR fans, almost, and at least they had that.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, into the second half. As saw you moseying down from the Moretti. I think I might be going in there myself, the Coventry game. Bumped into to Daz. And I had a quick word with him, and he said what I was thinking. He said, "We're still not safe, are we?" He said, "All it takes is for them to score an early goal, and they're right back in it." And I think I said, "Let's just hope we get an early goal in this half," and we did with Andy Lyons' goal number 2. And he almost fizzed one in. I think it was actually from the court, came from a corner, and did he fizz one in and it just went over the bar? So we started.
He fizzed one that got tipped over the top, and then he scored from the corner.
Yeah. I think their keeper I think he was feeling quite pleased with himself because he came out the second half and people were basically laughing at him in the north. They were. It was quite surreal, and he was like going about tapping the post, trying to like look professional. But the reality was, I think he wasn't particularly looking forward to it because obviously it's quite a partisan atmosphere in the north, and after his somewhat harrowing first half, I think he was dreading it, and so he was. You could see the spring in his step when he saved it, and Patino put across. I think it was Patino put across a really great corner, and Lyons did one of those lovely sort of glancing headers that that are a mark of somebody who's somebody who's who's confident. He knew where he wanted to put it, and he found the bottom corner. And you got to love a headed goal when they go in like that. You really do. And the North got their goal because we'd felt like we're a bit out of it. Like we were sat on the sides watching what was going on with everything happening at the other end. So it was good to to have a goal going so early, and it really did settle any nerves that anybody might, whether real or imagined, might have had. That if QPR get another, could we find ourselves capitulating? I don't think that was ever on the cards with the way that QPR were playing. Although I must say, I think they did improve in the second half. They seemed to come out more organised and had a lot more possession. And I think they probably went out to make sure that they didn't end up losing 8 or 9, because I think if they come out and played like they did in the first half, it could easily have been possibly the record score that any of us had ever seen.
They had 62% possession in the game, funnily enough.
Yeah, but that's statistics don't always tell the story, did they? I think we had something like 18 shots and 8 or 9 on target, and they had 8 shots and 2 on target or something. So you can have as much possession as you want, but if it's meaningless possession, it's pointless. If you get hold of the ball and get it forward quick to your attacking players, you might lose it the odd time. But we had effective possession, I think, didn't we? Particularly in the first. I think there was. Well, it happens in games, doesn't it? When you get so far ahead, you often then get a lull at some point. And again, without getting ahead of ourselves, when we started making the substitutions, we had that lull, didn't we? But a great start to the second half, and just what the doctor ordered. And so I think he's now got the perfect hat trick, albeit in different games, in his lines, hasn't he? He scored with his right foot, left foot, and his head. So he's not a one-dimensional player in relation to what he can do. He's 2-footed, he's good in the air, and clearly got an eye for goal. He must be pushing near one of our top scorers with 3. Well, certainly for the amount of time he's been on the pitch, I think goals per game or goals per minutes on the pitch, he must be the leading goal scorer.
I think Jerry's in double figures now, isn't he?
Yeah, Jerry got his 10.
He's got 10, yeah.
Well, I mean, Jerry's played a lot more games, though. I think is the point.
Yeah, I mean, Lyons has probably played about 6 or 7 games tops. I don't even think he's played that.
I'll tell you in a second. I'm just getting the stats up.
I'm just looking at the stats now. A certain former ex-presenter on the panel panelist would be creaming himself at this XG score, 2.97 for Blackpool. I think you know who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So obviously after Andy Lyons has bagged his second, we had a really moving moment in the game. The Tony Johnson Flair Memorial display from the north. It was a. How could describe? What's the word to use, Tim, to describe that? It was
quite emotional. I think it was. Also, listen, you know, to be honest, when they let a few of the flares off before the game, I thought, oh, that's okay, but it's like a bit of a damp squid compared to what we're expecting. I didn't realise they were doing it on the 55th minute. I thought it was just going to be done pre-match. So when it did happen, it was quite nice. I actually spoke with his partner because they were up in the Moretti. And, you know, so I didn't know Tone particularly well, but, you know, somebody to say hello to. So I just went over to her and just said a few words. And she seemed genuinely touched that, you know, and obviously this was before the game. I didn't speak to her afterwards, but she seemed genuinely touched that, you know, that people have been so kind and people have been so thoughtful about, you know, the way she and the family were feeling. So, you know, it was a nice little moment. And I'm sure, you know, it wasn't just once or twice, was it? It was quite a few times during the game where the chant struck up, and I've got to say the flares looked incredible.
They did.
It's a pity in some respects it didn't go all the way across. The problem is, you know, I suppose as you go from left to right in the north, you know, probably by the time you get to C block, a lot of people are thinking, well, you know, if you do hold up a flag, could you run the risk of getting banned and criminal conviction? And, you know, it's certainly not something I'm prepared to contemplate. But you almost wish you'd seen it going all the way across, because I think it would have been spectacular. But it was. I mean, I've seen some pictures from the other end of the video as it develops, and it does look very, very impressive.
I think you know, if you look at the reaction from the stewards and police, there was, you know, they allowed it to happen, didn't they? And it was quite rightly a softly approach. And I think I'd be very surprised if you know, the club are looking to do anything about it. It was a one-off and a very fitting tribute to Tony. And I
mean, what a game for his family as well.
And that's the thing.
Blackpool wins 6-1 as well. You almost think, you know, there's the higher power at work there.
That's it, written in the stars. Yeah.
The other thing is, you do wonder whether the EFL might take some action against.
They may
the
do.
club.
They may
Surely
do.
not.
Oh, if
Surely
they do, then they're fucking death-eating dementors. You know, because again, I obviously I didn't know Tony. Raggy spoke really, really well in the last podcast, and you know that brings it home that obviously Raggy was close to him with his mate. There's lots of people there. There's his family and there's his mates. You know, and people need to grieve. You know, we've all lost people at various points in time, and actually, that's something that, you know, you don't always have the opportunity to grieve. You don't always have the moment where you can sort of share that with other people, and that's really, really important. And it was, you know, I'm not going to make some trite comment like I was really, because it's not my thing. It's not my grief. It's not my mate. It's just a bloke who happens to support the same football club as me. But I'm really, really proud that the club were able to make that happen. And I think any one of us, when we do shuffle off the mortal coil, you know, if you get applauded, your name over the tannoy, you know, I mean, what more could you want as a memory than that? Than that spectacle, and that it's important, it's special, and I think it's really, really. We give the club grief when they don't do as we want, but I think they deserve a lot of credit. As Tim also spoke really well on the last pod, they deserve a lot of credit for having the respect for the fan base to let them manage and memorialise one of their own in that way. So fair play to him.
So that's the good thing about being supporting Blackpool or a smaller club rather than. Can you imagine that at Man United or at Liverpool, at Arsenal, at Spurs? No chance. No chance.
Would not wish to disrupt the experience of the match day going. This does not fit with the Liverpool FC match day going value package or some shite like that, you know.
Yeah. As Mark's just said, there was even a smoke in the fire, smoke flare in the family
Saw
store.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
And quite aside from it, I mean, what a spectacle it made, and that's not really the point, but I couldn't take my lad because I couldn't get back home and back. And when I came home, I showed him the pictures of the game and he was like, wow, like it was just such a thing. And I think I might have mentioned it in one of the chats that there's a German fella I know who's sort of got interested in us, and I sent him the pictures and he was sort of, oh, that is like a Bundesliga game. And I was like, yeah, and you actually can't really imagine that at a lot of clubs as a thing, can you, in this country? That's that sterile thing. When you go to a lot of the grounds, it's sterile. It feels like a shopping centre. And it's weird because our bricks and mortar wise, our ground's really bland, and yet it's really, really not. It's got soul.
Okay, Morgan Rogers is at the post. We've continued to play on the front foot.
Oh, don't forget Jerry's overhead kick that didn't quite come off.
Yeah, that's right. It
Did
was
you
like
see
watching
Judd's pass for that, though?
It was like watching the Harlem Globetrotters of football at times.
But have you seen Judd's pass for that? Because it's back. Rogers hits the post, it comes out, and Judd stands up this ridiculous little chipped pass for Jerry to take the overhead kick, quite on purpose. It's as good as anything like Charlie Adamo or Wes or somebody would do. It's brilliant.
So we get more of the same next game. And to round it off, Tim, Sir Kenneth of goal, a tidy finish.
Yeah, it was. It was. He found himself free on the right hand side, just inside the area, and it was a smart cross shot into the bottom left hand corner. He had one earlier on. I don't really remember, and I've forgotten how the complete build up. I think it comes down. We played some Harlem Globetrotter style football.
This one,
and then this cross had come across, and if he'd volleyed it perfectly.
That was the one where Husband ran from like the edge of his own box. Husband just went insane and went on a really, really, really long run. Puts the cross in, and then Dougall puts it basically into top row of the North Stand after all that. I think that was the one.
Yeah, but it would have been a quality goal if that one had gone in. But yeah, he I thought he did okay when he came on. I mean, I don't think he was up to anything like at the level that Fiorini was at, but he was tidy, and he has got an ability every now and again to pop up with a goal, which is.
I've always said in the warm-ups, Tim, he's one of the, if not the best finisher in the warm-ups. Kenny, he's got pure technique, both feet. It'd be good if he got a few more goals.
Yeah, I think he sometimes seems to get the nosebleed a bit, doesn't he? But as we saw in the playoff final, and I think he's scored a few since. He's. As our midfielders go, he does come in with the odd one, maybe not as many as others, but he does pick up the odd goal, and it was a very smart finish. And I said at one stage I had thoughts that we might see a 7 or 8 goals because obviously being 5 up at after about 50 minutes, obviously there was still a healthy period of time to go. My record scoring that I've seen at Bloomfield Road was 7-1. So we got close anyway, it was nice just to finish the game on a high, and fantastic atmosphere at the end, and the players got a great reception. I think hopefully they'll remember that, and they'll take the way they played yesterday into the next game, because we've still got a lot of work to do, haven't we? So
yeah, we have. Yeah. Okay, let's do player ratings for this game.
Just very quickly, John, just to mention as well, obviously Keshi came off the bench, didn't he? So it was good to see him getting a few minutes, and let's hope that he can play a part now between now and the end of the season, because it's great, even if it's an option from the bench. It's a great option to have, isn't it? We were talking before the game, weren't we, Mitch, that you can't help but wonder if he'd been fit. We probably wouldn't be in the position we're in. You'd probably be, I don't know, maybe 16th place or something, but you'd probably have 7, 8, 9 more points on the board. And he'd have been involved in getting some of those points. So hopefully he can play a real part now, between now and the end of the season.
Well, it gives us that result anyway, gives us hope, and
it does.
Keshi coming back gives us even more hope. So fingers crossed, So let's move on to the player ratings. Start with you, Tim. Chris Maxwell.
Didn't have a great deal to do, did he? But what he did do, I thought he did reasonably well. 7.
Andy Lyons, arguably the cream of the crop, Mitch. It's going to be a high one, this.
10.
Yeah. Hard to argue.
No, I mean he was terrific. He was absolutely terrific, and I think we've covered him in depth. He looks as good a potential, can't speak, as good an acquisition as we've had in a long time.
Nick, Curtis Nelson, probably arguably his best game so far, and scoring a goal as well. Very well taken goal.
It was
panic there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it looks easy, or he's just rolled it in, but just to have that presence of thought at the time, right? Knock it slightly, spin round and knock it in. Fantastic, and very good defensive display as well. Like I said before, I think he's forming a real partnership with Jordan Thornley. And he had a great game last night. It's a 9 from me. Yep.
Just going back to you, Tim. Give Maxwell an extra point for his team.
I'm a bit harsh with 7. Maybe I am. I'll up it. I'll give him an 8. I did think that after I said it, actually. But obviously, he didn't have a lot to do, did he? That's why I thought 7, because some games the keepers have a lot to do and they get scored accordingly. But his distribution was a bit better, I've got to say, last night, is it? Because I've been a bit of a critic of that.
Okay, yeah, Tim, Jordan Thornley.
Oh, Jordan,
his first ever career goal.
Yeah, I think that's worth an extra point on its own. But listen, I'll be so disappointed if he leaves our club, and I wouldn't blame him in the slightest if he did. But he seems to, like you just said, he seems to be getting a bit of a partnership going with Avett. And I think that they're looking at quite a solid pairing. So and he gets his goal as well. So
He was a little bit. He had a couple of wobbly moments with balls out from the back.
8 plus.
Okay. Jimmy Husband, Mitch.
I thought
back to his best.
Yeah, Jimmy was great. I had a look at the stats before. He actually won the most balls in the air, which is probably why Mick picked him, because I think he must have perceived that they might have a bit more of an aerial threat than whoever he picked Tomo against. I can't remember whoever it was. Burnley, wasn't it, where he picked Tomo to pick their nippy little lad. I thought Jimbo was as good. Maybe not quite as good as Nelson, but was very, very good. So I'll give him a 9.
Colin Connolly, Nick.
I didn't notice him a lot last night. Well, that's not a bad thing. It's probably because I was just starry-eyed at all the attacking Brazil 1970 football we were playing. 8.
So I don't want to jump in, but I don't want to notice Connolly. I want him doing what he did last night. He disrupted play, broke up play.
I meant it in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think we, people, when we've got a problem when we're putting our faith in Connolly to be the player we notice. I thought he played his role beautifully last night. Just he was in a weird position as well, wasn't he? Like between defence and midfield.
Yeah.
I thought it was very clever the way he was used last night, and very clever the way he played it.
Charlie Patino, who are we on? I've lost my train of thought. Tim.
His best game for arguably since the last time we. I'm forgetting about
Preston,
Stoke. Yeah, I meant to say Preston. I was going to say last time we were at home, but we beat Stoke in the middle, didn't we? So his best performance is Preston, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it comes when he's playing with Fiorini. I think we saw when we played QPR in the away fixture that these two seem to have a bit of something going on. And I think Fiorini helps bring the best out of Patino and maybe vice versa. 8.
First time he's played with the DM, yeah. I think Connolly in there made a massive difference. Right, Patino, he certainly made a massive difference. Didn't he? What a performance from Fiorini.
Yeah, is it me?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent. I think with Fiorini, it's not so much that he does spectacular things. He just does simple things very quickly. His vision, his awareness is stunning. You know, he'll just put these little toe poked balls through that
keeps the ball moving all the time.
Oh yeah. And he's like it's like I don't know if this is a bit of a niche reference, but it's like when you're making music on a computer and you up the BPM and everything gets a bit faster, and we're just that much more driven with Fiorini in there. I thought he was really, really good. He's got quality. He's got bite as well. You know, he's not a luxury. You get that quality with you know, sometimes you get that quality, but you also sacrifice something in terms of the work rate. You don't with him. I was very impressed. He faded a little bit, didn't he? You know, and which is understandable. I mean, it's on his second start in God knows how long. He faded a little bit, about an hour. And he did have that moment, which I still can't decide whether it was his fault or CJ's fault, or a combination of two, where he hit that. We'd played some wonderful football and hit what looked like it was going to be an absolutely glorious pass, sort of fading, switching play. And then the lad just picked it, ran up the pitch and scored. 8+. Is that harsh?
I think he was a 9.
I'd say a 9.
All right, I'll give him a 9.
Not even in minus either. A solid 9.
Yeah, I'll give him a 9 then. No, I'm giving him a 9. I'm giving him a 9 minus, just because he faded a bit. That's not his fault, but a 10 is him playing at the top of his ability, isn't it? And he's not quite fit yet.
Okay. Nick, shuttlecock, instrumental
20.
in a lot of our attacking plays, set up goals. Brilliant performance from CJ.
It was, you know, and if only that was week in, week out. But I think it helps, you know, the type of passes we're playing to him, and this is another good reason, you know, with Fiorini being in the team. For if you're playing balls in behind for him to run onto, that's where he's at his best. And we did that last night. And, you know, he made good decisions when he was in good positions as well, which he doesn't always do. But last night he did. He was, you know, he was instrumental in a lot of what we did last night. And it was brilliant to see because, you know, he'll get written off and we're as guilty as anyone for doing it, you know, when he'll have a poor game and he's not championship quality. He's a bench player at best. And then he goes and does that, and you're like, oh, CJ, you know, he has got that in him. He was fantastic last night. Didn't put a foot wrong really for me, other than maybe, like you just mentioned, Mitch, with the goal. Like he was kind of waiting for the pass to come to him, and then he was on his heels a bit in trying to retrieve it. But I'm not going to be too harsh on him for that. So I will. Is it a 10?
I would give him 10 if it was.
I think I'd struggle to see, for him to be any better than he was last night. So
I'd say it's the best he's ever played for Blackpool.
Yeah.
I
would agree.
He deserves a 10.
Yeah.
What I can't get, because he showed so much skill last night and so much control, is how he can go from doing that to looking like he couldn't kick a ball straight. It's bizarre. I've got to say, he was incredible last night.
Yeah,
incredible.
I think it's asking him to do what is his strengths. I'll credit Phil on AVFTT, put some analysis, and it was just what Nick said, that idea of playing him in a slightly deeper starting position. So as the wing back role means he can run onto things rather than playing him as the front three. So he's up with the striker, where he's got to have that technical ability because he's got to take it on the turn. He can't accelerate into those positions. And I think that shows what confidence can do, because he's naturally, he's naturally accelerating into positions. He's picking the ball up deeper. He's getting up to the top speed and using his attribute. And then from that comes confidence. And from confidence comes the ability to sort of, he was doing first time passes and he was in passing triangles and all sorts. And confidence does incredible things to a player in a team, doesn't it? And CJ, like everybody else, in fact, perhaps more so than everybody else, because I think when CJ's off form, he gets tense. The ball sort of spoons off him at weird angles, and you know, it can't be nice playing like that.
Well done, CJ. You have come in with a bit of stick, but brilliant performance. Keep it up.
He flicked. I'll keep going on about it because I feel so conscious of the number of times I've said nasty things about CJ. He flicked the ball on for Kenny Dougall's goal, did he not? Like Super Gaz at his best. You know, I got laughed at down here about a month ago, and I said, "Well, he can't win things in the air, you know." And everybody laughed at me, and there he is up front, like
a salmon.
Yeah.
It's the Farage quote again, isn't it? You all laughed at me, and I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you? Tim, you've been a big critic of CJ, haven't you? I'm sure
massive. And justified, I would go on to say. I think, you know, that's why it's almost like chalk and cheese. The control last night and his decision-making and the way he attacked players and passed the ball when he should have done and didn't try and overplay things was a joy to watch.
I think it's Patino and Fiorini playing so well. Obviously contribute to that as well, getting him decent delivery and service.
Yeah, but he's still got his bit to do, hasn't he? And I couldn't see that in him. I couldn't see that.
I agree, Tim. I couldn't. I'd written him off.
Same. Right, let's move on to Morgan Rogers. I think I've lost my path as well. Who was it next?
Might be.
We've all had our say on the CJ.
I did.
It started off with me. I was CJ, but then I
did Patino, so it must be me again.
Rogers, brilliant in an unfamiliar role.
Yeah, I thought
more or less up top with Jerry.
Yeah, I think he'd done it a little bit for Lincoln, hadn't he? Played in a more advanced role. But yeah, I think he showed. Because I think sometimes he's done it in fits and starts, hasn't he? He's played a good half and then faded. He seems to be like a half a game player. But I think as he's getting fitter and he's getting more into, you know, playing on a regular basis for us, he's becoming far more consistent. And I think he looks like he's better in that slightly more advanced role rather than maybe being out on the wing. And I said in the early part of the pod, you know, he's a big lad. I believe he's 6'3". You know, he's got a bit of muscle behind him as well, and you know that'll strike the fear of God into certain defenders. You know, because you know he's not going to easily be pushed off the ball. I just thought he had a great overall performance. He seemed to link up well with Jerry. It was a live. He had a lively game all the way through. I think it's a 9.
Give him a 9+ personally.
He deserved the goal, didn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, if he got a goal,
he starts every game for me from now on. He's straight in the starting 11. Has to be.
Yeah. I'll stick with my 9 though.
Okay. As does Jerry Yates. Mitch, great to see him score.
It was great to see him score, and it was really good to see him enjoying himself on a football pitch. I liked what we did last night, and I liked that we got players beyond him sometimes. You know, he roams, doesn't he? As a striker, he roams. He doesn't just hang and sort of poach. He roams, he plays football, he links up really nicely, and he looked like he was having fun. He was getting the ball, he was sort of turning, he was doing those little chops that he does. He was sort of those little behind his leg flicks and stuff to try and linking play beautifully. I don't really think I can't really remember him having another chance after he got the penalty particularly, but he was right at the heart of what we were doing, and it felt much more like the Pele-esque figure that we loved from Yates on form, and I just was happy that he was having fun, because he's had a bloody crap gig just running around having a shot sort of once every 3 weeks, and it was nice to see him like that. For his performance, 8+, 9 minus 8+. I can't make up my mind with each 8+ probably, to be honest.
Well, he's a number 9, so give him a 9 minus.
Yeah, I'll give him a 9 minus. Fair enough.
Right, we won't bother with man of the matches. I think we're all agreed on Andy Lyons, aren't we? Or are we? Or CJ?
I'm a Lions man, mate.
I think it's got to be Lyons. I think honourable mention for CJ. I think it was Raggy said that you should mark a player at a 10 based on that player's capacity to perform. I thought it was a really canny comment. And on that basis, then CJ is probably a 12 and Lyons is a 10. But in reality, Lyons was the man of that match.
But he ran him a close second, to be fair.
Yeah.
He really did.
He did, yeah.
Can we share the award? Who cares?
It's your show, John. You can do what you want.
Give it to everyone.
I can imagine all the players are sat around now, John. They're all watching, waiting to see who's going to get the Seasiders podcast man of the match.
My tenure as a Bolton under 10s manager, I have split the man of the match award to 2 players, and I will do the same this evening. CJ and Andy Lyons gets my vote. Manager rating then. Now, big mix, coming for quite a lot of justifiable criticism over the last few games. I think he deserves praise today.
He does.
The team he's picked. So it's got to be a 10, hasn't it?
Well, I still tinge with frustration with me as to why we didn't do it before. So
actually.
And
it's almost like, if
we've ended up there almost, haven't we? A bit.
But I'm continuing my one-man defence thing. We've come up with loads of different teams, right? And the fan base has come up with loads of different teams, but I've never seen anyone come up with this one in this formation. So everybody was going, oh, well, if you've got to play Poveda and Bowler and Rodgers and put them in a 3 behind someone, you've got to do this and that. Nobody, and maybe if somebody wants to send in a tweet that they did send, I'll withdraw that. But nobody I've seen has gone, right, you go with a 4 at the back, but with 2 advanced wing backs and Connolly kind of floating as a deep lying defensive midfielder kind of between the 2. And then you put Patino and Fiorini in there, but you've got no wingers as such, but your wing backs are going to come up so high up that nobody's come up with that. And I think credit to him for that. And credit to him for coming up with something that, in retrospect, seems really obvious. When you look at it, you go, "Oh, yeah, that was really obvious." Yeah, well, why didn't you do that earlier? But I don't think we did ask him to pick this team. I think we asked him to pick an attacking team, and I think sometimes we even saw quite close to that team. And frankly, it looked a bit shit when we saw it at Blackburn. So I think he deserves some credit, because it's not Football Manager. You've got to work that out. You've got to put it together, and he's finally got us fired in a way that we haven't fired for months. So I think he deserves some credit personally.
I think Mark GT deserves some credit for that post in the comments. Which, that's what I've been chuckling about for that last minute.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
I came out and dug out my DVD when dinosaurs were there.
And he got a tune out of what Darren says there. He's seen a footballer in CJ. He's worked out what to do with him. He's got a tune out of him. Anybody with half a brain should be able to get a tune out of a player like Patino or Fiorini or whoever, these quality players. But getting a tune out of CJ, well done, mate.
Mm.
And bloody Curtis Nelson, written off by Cardiff, dumped by a relegation rival, looks like the best defender we've had in ages.
Well, this is quite topical. A lot of clubs above us are facing points deductions. Some of us suspended points deductions. Maybe we should give Mick a suspended score based on whether he picks this team again or goes back to his tried and trusted going for a 0-0 draw over the next game. So it's a suspended 10 from me.
To see whether he means it or whether he's just...
You just don't want him to be the new Callum Connolly, do you, John? The leggy League One donkey of the management world. When he's leading us up the steps to lift the Champions League in 3.5 years' time, you don't want them replaying the pod comments.
We'll all become memes, won't we?
Well, not me.
Right, just before we go, we've got Coventry away
at home
Saturday. Sorry, at home. Sorry, yeah. Pivotal game. Not as pivotal as Cardiff, but if we can, this is going to put a real marker down on the division if we win this one.
There's going to be a lot of teams looking over the shoulders if we do, I think. QPR, Cardiff, Reading, who I think are getting a points deduction. I believe that decisions on that are imminent.
What are the points deductions that they're mooting? What actual?
Well, there's Wigan for not paying the players' wages. They've got 3 suspended, I think, haven't they, from last season? There's a risk of getting an additional. So that could be 6, but most certainly 3. Reading have got 6 suspended, I believe, and therefore could get 12. Huddersfield, if they go into administration, I don't know whether they will do or whether they won't do.
Well, the talk of Huddersfield is that if they get cut adrift, they'll go into it voluntarily to take the points this season and not have a hangover to next year. I think, Tim.
But don't they have rules about that if you would have gone down anyway, that you get the next season?
Possibly, yeah. I think there's a cut off for that, though. I think if you do it before you're down, but I think there's some kind of cut off where you can sort of dodge it slightly.
So how many are Cardiff looking at?
I'm not sure Cardiff looking at any.
I'm sure I heard something about them.
It's Huddersfield, Wigan, and then obviously further up the table, Reading. But when Reading face that, can we scroll up a bit to see how many points Reading are on?
They're on 44 points.
44.
We're on 35.
If they got 6, they're down to 38. So they are, and I think it will be a minimum 6.
Because they got done last year as well, didn't they? I'm sure
they did, but they
suspended last year.
6 suspended, so those 6 will be activated, and the view is they'd get another 6 as well. So if they got 12, that would put them below us.
Wow, cheating bastards! Get them down there.
Oh, what a shame!
We're playing by the rules.
What a shame for Paul Ince, John.
So
that'd put them, they're 32 then, wouldn't it?
There could be some interesting developments, and we'll look at Rotherham as well. Rotherham 5 points ahead of us. Massive few games coming up. When you bear in mind that we've got Wigan at home, Cardiff at home. Who else have we got at home?
Birmingham. I think we've got Birmingham.
Birmingham away.
Away, sorry.
Even up to Swansea, they're in absolutely rank form. That's pushing it, but you go all the way up there, and none of those teams are playing well. I mean, Cardiff have had that little run, but they look like they've run out of steam a little bit. I know they got a draw tonight, didn't they? But
it's all to play for, and the season is still alive.
The only shame is that Coventry have got something to play for, isn't it? I mean, they're still pushing around the playoffs, aren't they? I think they're about 9th or 10th, aren't they? But sort of in touch with the playoffs. It's just a shame that it's not another team, because I think QPR, I think they probably thought after that result they were maybe, well, that's enough, and it just, I don't know.
So what form Coventry are in then?
9th, so
they drew Wigan last night though, didn't they? So
yeah,
unbeaten in 5.
It'll be tough on Saturday, and I think
all runs come to an end, John.
Yeah, they do. As we've put a lot of bad runs to bed, haven't we? Yesterday,
Coventry are a lot. they're a lot more stylish than effective. Every time I've seen them, I always think, wow, they look really good. But they never, they don't actually seem to be as effective as they are aesthetically pleasing. And I think the other positive is, in general, we play better. The better the opposition in footballing senses, the better we seem to play.
So they've beaten Huddersfield 4-0 away, drawn 1-1. Cov drew with the Knobbers. In fact, God, look at that unbeaten run. Last beaten on the 3rd of Feb. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games unbeaten. But all runs come to an end. We're going to pick the same team and we're going to beat them 2-0.
Listen, they can't beat the Knobbers and they can't beat Wigan, so they can't be that good.
Well, to be fair, actually, MB's just put the game we played, the away game, actually right. They weren't actually very. I've just said they've been very good every time I've seen them. They weren't very good in that away game at all, and that was arguably.
Missing, didn't they? That's when they had all the illnesses, and then they gave it all to us, and we had everybody out in the build up to the break, didn't we? Which caused chaos for us.
Another pertinent point from Mark GT there. Best fans at Bloomfield Road. I think they've got the entire East Stand again, haven't they? Is that going to be a gift or a curse? I think that'll be good for the game, and I think it'll be good to get the North going again.
There's about 4,000 of them coming in there.
Yeah. Right. I think we'll leave it there. I won't do team picking or anything because we just want to pick the same team that Mick's picked, I think, don't we?
We just need 11 CJ Hamiltons and we'll be all right.
Yeah, clone CJ in a test tube, Nick, if you can, between now and then. Yes, ground room, quick predictions. Tim?
1-1.
Mitch?
2-1 to us.
Nick?
What Mitch said, 2-1.
All right, I'll go for 3-1. We've got the shuttlecock firing on all cylinders. Tangerine machine is going to grind out another 3 points. Another fantastic victory. Right, we'll call it there. An hour and a half. Needed talking about, didn't it?
Didn't it?
Yeah. If you want to listen to I'll be on a Cov preview show, so listen to us on there. As I said, thanks for watching. Thanks for downloading. And up the pool. Come on the pool.
Come on the pool. The great escape.